What's going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company with a spinnerbait video today. So this is a 3/8 ounce, I believe. I ordered 3/8 and half, and I don't think this would be half. This is a 3/8 ounce War Eagle spinnerbait, and in my opinion, War Eagles are probably one of the top 3 best spinnerbaits out there. Northlands are great because they're cheaper. These are a little bit more expensive. I think they're like $8-9. The only thing I really don't like about these, and it's super minor, is this isn't a looped end, and Northland spinnerbaits are. There's a ton of different spinnerbaits out there, and I usually lean towards like the $4 ones, just because you can get them beat up or lose one and you're not out $14. But these War Eagles are legit. The hooks are super sturdy. I don't know, the build is really, really nice. And they're wire-tied skirts, but obviously, sorry, War Eagle, I take the skirts off. And so the skirts last forever too. But I'm gonna actually end up doing a dubbing loop on this. I went back and forth. The shank after this little lead is crazy short, so I really wouldn't be able to put much down here. And then the actual frame of this spinnerbait is super thick, and so it would be difficult. I'd have to use a ton of deer hair, and I'd only be able to fit just a stack or, maybe like 2-3 stacks on here, and it would just build up really, really big with thread. So I thought, I haven't done a dubbing loop in a while, I'll just do a dubbing loop. The materials in the dubbing loop, mainly the main ingredient is Squimpish Flies Galaxy. I really like this color. It was really hard picking out colors for this silver head, so I don't really have a ton of you could go gray, I guess, but I've done a lot of natural patterns lately. So Galaxy, I love Squimpish Fly stuff, it's great. I've got some Nightmare Musky Flies, Holo Flash and Fiber. This is Cotton Candy, so you can kind of see the theme here. But just a little bit of this. It's not a ton, because this is a lot of pink, and I didn't want that super pink bait. And then some black and peacock blue Arctic Goat, just to add with some natural. This stuff is so thin and it swims really well. I just threw a little bit of this in there, and then I put Holographic Flashabou Sunset, I believe. Sunset, it's just gold and purple. And so I'm going to get my dubbing loop ready, and then I might end up doing some sort of collar up here. We'll kind of see. My dubbing loop skills aren't where I would want them to be, where I can predict how long your materials should be in terms of how much space you have here. I just can't convert that in my head very well. So if I have room up here, I'll do a little rabbit collar or something like that. But if I do the opposite and I'm running out of room, then I'll just leave it be. So I'm gonna get a really long dubbing loop, just because I always err on the side of you might as well just make it super long, and if you don't use it, you just cut it off. So I'm going to get that worked all the way back. The nice thing about the skirt bumps or whatever are on here, there's a little bump on this back one, so it's going to be nice. It's going to kind of trap my materials there so they don't want to roll off. That's going to be actually kind of nice. I'm going to get that sitting right there. And I'm going to use just a typical, I can't remember what brand this is, just a dubbing twister. You could use whatever brand that you want. I want this bait, I actually measured it from where my dubbing loop's going to start, not where it's going to end. And right where my material clip is like 4.5-5 inches. And to me, that's plenty, because I don't want too much space off this hook. Otherwise, I'm going to want a trailer hook on there. So it's going to be a little bit of a bulkier, I think, shorter bait, because this hook is really short. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but this hook is pretty short. So I'm going to I just have a Loon dubbing, they're D-loop, dubbing loop. tweezers. These things are awesome, and they're like 14 bucks or something. So I'm gonna get my dubbing loops materials into this clip, and I can kind of show you what I'm working with. So this is how I'm gonna put it in, and you can kind of see, it's not gonna be perfect, but it tapers down shorter here, and I'm gonna trim it just a little bit on this side so it does kind of the same thing, because I want a taper. If it's all the same length, it's just gonna all go back to there. So I'm gonna actually end up trimming a little bit of this off, and that'll help make it not so thick too. What I don't want is for it to all be super straight like this, even though it's gonna be tapered. I'm not really gonna mess much with this side because I've already kind of naturally done that. Again, if you're a dubbing loop expert, you're probably looking at this and gagging a little bit, but they've worked for me in the past. And so now that that is ready, I can get my spinner, and then I've got just a little bit of this Loon Low Tack Swax. It's kind of a funny name, but I'm just gonna put a little bit on here just because I have a lot of synthetic materials that I don't want slipping too much, but I don't want to load this up too much. You just got to be careful. I usually will use the other side of my finger to move it around because I don't want my fingers to get too sticky. And you're gonna want, I kind of just feed it all the way through, and then I'll come back, and then I'm gonna hold it kind of like this, and I can just make sure I want those materials. I'm gonna go right about where I pinched and get that nice and tight. Then I can get my tweezers out of the way. And now I'm just gonna work some of this stuff down because I don't want it too thick on itself. Otherwise, it won't twist very well. So I'm going to push a bunch of this down, but I don't want too many really thin spots either. And then I'm going to take like my bodkin or something, and I'm just going to feed it through and make sure there's not a ton of trapped stuff. All of these synthetics like to just get curled up with each other, especially this tinsel. And so I'm just going to kind of separate it, and I can get a few spins on here and do the same thing, but it can't hurt just to do it a little bit before. And there's just a couple really long materials that I want to get out of the way. Might as well do it now. So I'll get this trimmed up. And we can start spinning. Sorry, I'm just trying to do this in one take, so I just don't want any super crazy long stuff. I mean, you can end up trimming it. I'm going to end up trimming it all around when I'm done, but just doing it now might save you some time. So I'm going to get my thread worked way up, make sure that all of the stuff is covered, and I can kind of just hopefully start spinning this bad boy up. And again, you're going to want a bodkin. You're going to want to spin it just a few times. You're not going to want to do it all right away. And I can kind of look at it and pull some of this down to make sure that I got my taper. And then I'll just start spinning it up. I don't think it's going to be too thick. And this is 210 black. You could go a little bit heavier. I've got my vise clamped down, and I'm putting some good tension on this vise, maybe just get a little comb or something at first. I've got these almost like dental picks. See, they're kind of curved. These usually do the trick, and they're a little bit sturdier than my bodkin, so I can kind of get down there. I'm just really going to pick this out. And then I'll do more twisting. There is quite a bit of pink in here, but that's all right. So I can get some more spins on this, and I just want to keep tightening this up, but this 210 isn't like crazy strong. And so you want to be really careful with too much spinning. So I can kind of test this out and pinch it. Down here is really tight. That looks pretty good. Still kind of loose. I'm going to do just a couple more spins because I can, it's super corded up. And again, I don't want to break this loop. And I'll just get it combed out, and then I've got just a little cup of water next to me. These synthetics aren't going to absorb any water. Like if this was craft fur, I mean craft fur is fake, but that absorbs water. If this was marabou or something like that, it would absorb a ton of water. I want to get all of this folded back right now so that I don't really have to, I'm going to pinch my thread and kind of pull it back. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it on one side so that when I start wrapping, because it's right on there, so my first wrap, it's even going to start wrapping right away. And I don't know how this spinnerbait's going to do with this thread spinning in my cradle. I'm going to do as tight as I can because I can tell already that I'm going to probably run out of room before I run out of dubbing loop. But that's alright. Just make sure it gets all folded back. Before you wrap it. And you really don't have to worry a ton about everything getting all caught up on the around the hook and stuff. You'll be able to comb that out. I'm doing really tight wraps. Again, just wrap it back, up. Maybe I have a lot of room. Maybe I'll end up doing a little rabbit collar anyway. Maybe I'll bump up. Couple more wraps. There goes my bobbin. I don't want to trap any of those materials down, especially on the head. I'm running out of real estate here, getting right by the arm of that spinnerbait. And again, I'm going to end up, you can kind of see it's just like all over the place. I'm going to end up trimming this. So that should be good. A couple extra wraps. Get my cradle out of the way. You see that? I want all that stuff back. Don't want anything. That should be good because there's not a ton of like pressure or anything on this. So I can get my spinner out of the way. And then now I can give this a good comb. Now that it's all down. And you really, these things don't come to life until you get them wet. And get them, what I'll do is I'll get this wet first, and then I'll come back and you can see all this stuff. I'll end up trimming that, and I can see already there's always just a couple random stragglers who didn't want to. I could spend 10 minutes trimming this. So I think what I'm going to do, I could make another little tiny dubbing loop and put that there. But I'm going to take a second here and think about what I want to do. Alright, so as you can see, I decided not to add any rabbit or anything, just because I really like how this turned out, and I don't want a rabbit collar or whatever I would end up doing on the front. I mean, the black thread collar is a little bit big. I wish I would have made it even, you know, just a little bit longer of a dubbing loop or had more materials in it. But I really like it. It's got some flash in it. It's pretty thin. I think it's going to move really well in the water. I've trimmed it a little bit. I have some more trimming to do. I'm actually going to let this completely dry out, and then I'll trim it then too. But I just got it really wet and just trimmed off the stuff that was crazy all over the place. So dubbing loop spinnerbait, galaxy color mostly from Squimpish flies, but I like this one. Junior's Fishing Company, juniorsfishing.com. See you on the next one.